and it was Chicago Red Stars versus Gotham FC, number 4 versus the number 5 seed to kick things off in terms of NWSL quarterfinal action. Chicago won this one, Lisa. Narrow match, 1-0, the game winner coming from Mallory Pugh. Final career match for Carly Lloyd of Gotham FC. And a lot of things taking place in between the match. And I don't know if there were certain stretches of it where we thought maybe there's not enough happening, quite
Yeah.
frankly, at this moment. I don't think that's unfair to say. We, on the preview, Lisa, we talked a little bit about that. We talked a little about how there were perhaps some similar threads, right, between these two teams in terms of taking a look at the individual matchups, at individual performances, and how certain sides can kind of mirror each other. So
Mm-hmm.
while Gotham having a really savvy attacking duo and Ifeoma Manu, Margaret Purse, and on the other side of that, we're like, hey, like Chicago Red Stars for Mallory Pugh and Kalia Watt, they're kind of clicking, heading on into these playoffs, and talking about experienced midfields, right? You know, having somebody like an Ellie Long or McCall Zerboni, Carly Lloyd for Gotham, and on the other side for Chicago, Sarah Woldmo, Morgan Gatra, Vanessa DiBernardo. So we just sort of kept going down the line. There was just like, gosh, this can be really, really, really narrow. And turns out, Lisa, we were correct. It was a 1-0 scoreline. Why don't you remind our awesome listeners who we had picked and how things shook out?
So I had picked Gotham going into this one, and you, Sandra, you were the homer. You picked Chicago to win, so you win this one. But we went back and forth on this. We didn't expect high scoring numbers. We even predicted maybe even going into overtime for this one, which it did not happen. It ends in regulation play. But it's so interesting to say that you had a boring match, because there can be 0-0 games where it is incredibly boring if both teams are playing the same way and it's really a chess match and it's really the game is being played between the ears. So it's really a head game between two teams. But there can also be 0-0 matches where it is so exciting. There's so much happening. You can see the game unfolding. You can see teams trying to pick apart the puzzle of their opponents. So this was 1-0. And it didn't have too much excitement. It was a little bit boring because both Chicago and Gotham play very similar styles where it's keep possession of the ball. They have speed up top, but it's picking and choosing when they're going to take that speed and go forward with it. And really, this game was played between the ears. It was a head game between these two sides. And that's what it came down to. We said goodbye to Carly Lloyd for the final time, which is a note that we need to hit on, because I don't think that's really how she wanted to go out. I mean, it can't be, because I don't think she had the best game of her career. And your last game is never going to be your best game because it's your last game. So there's a lot going into that. And also you're playing for a playoff position and to continue moving forward. But just really, I didn't see much from Carly Lloyd in this match that I wanted to see, that you would expect from a veteran. I think that Ifeoma Onumonu had a fantastic game. In the moments that we saw her in bursts and in spurts, she found the holes between Tierna Davidson and Sarah Gordon, and she could pick off those passes and sit in those pockets between the lines and play really good soccer. But ultimately, the game opened up for Chicago towards the second half. In the second half, it was a bit different for Chicago, and you can dive into this a little bit more. But I think it was around the hour mark for Mallory Pugh when this goal came for the Red Stars, and it was beautifully done. Waldmo getting the assist, driving towards the defender in the center of the field, and then dishing the ball out wide to Pugh, who just sets it up beautifully on her right foot, finding the side netting, and really a good goal from Pugh. And I think really well deserved from Mallory Pugh. I mean, Sandra, you being there, what were the vibes in the stadium? What did you see from both Gotham and Chicago in this first match of the playoffs?
Well, I guess to set the scene a little bit, like to start things off, the vibe was really good. I think this was a fan base that wasn't sure that, whether or not they were going to get to see another home game for this team in 2021. And then the Chicago Red Stars went and did what they did and locked one up. So there was an opportunity to kind of, I guess, show up and show out, and they did. They ended up, I think the attendance that was announced was a little over 7,000. So that was exciting. And they had all of the lower bowl kind of open. So
I
there were
love
people
that.
on both sides of the pitch. So the scenes were really, really really nice. Like I said, it was a beautiful, an oddly beautiful 60-degree day in November in Bridgeview, Illinois. So that was nice that these two teams got to have nice weather, nice sunshine on them, for this game. So the energy and the vibe there was really good. In terms of on the pitch, I'm with you. I'm hearing everything that you're saying about sort of taking the Gotham angle of it and kind of taking a look at them and what they were bringing or what they were not in this match. And I echo all of those sentiments 100% because there were moments in this game, particularly in that first half, where it just definitely felt like no one was really taking control of it.
Yeah.
There were moments where it just sort of looked like there was, you could tell players were just kind of getting touches on the ball just for the sake of getting touches. A lot of disjointedness, kind of happening to sort of start things out. Which maybe like if you're looking at the middle thirds of this pitch that you wouldn't have assumed that would have been the case with all of the experience on both sides of the ball, right? But it was very early on. The total shot scenario kind of going into second half wasn't something to be impressed by. I think Gotham barely edged out Chicago there. It was like 4 total shots to 3 for the first half. And they won all of the possession. I think it was almost like 60-40 right around there in favor of Gotham. But you have all that and there's nothing to show for it. But there was part of sort of, like I said, the disjointed, maybe it was a bit of playoff nerves. It's like the first one and you're sort of getting your feet under you in terms of getting your legs a feel for the pitch and for the ground in front of you. But it was a little bit ironic, I thought, sort of watching this playoff game between these two sides. And again, one of those storylines that people kept not, continuously talking about leading up to it was Carly Lloyd in her last match and didn't really see a lot about the fact that she was going to Bridgeview. And ironically enough, that this was where she kind of got the early beginnings of her pro career, when she played in the WPS days in Bridgeview, Illinois with the Chicago Red Stars. So there's like this weird kind of like full circle thing. I was like, wow, that's kind of an interesting anecdote that just that I was like, well, maybe I'll talk about that on Attacking Third. But just not a lot. When we were on the preview, I was also thinking of that too, Lisa. I believe the angle that I was taking, that if Gotham wanted to try to be successful in this one, that Lloyd probably needed to take a little bit more of a supporting role. And I don't know if that was maybe that's just not in her mentality and in her game set. She's a gamer, right? Like that is her experience. That is who she is and what she does. But was really looking for her to sort of maybe be that supporting role, kind of playmaker-esque type of a point person for Gotham. And we didn't really see that. Ifeoma Manu really got in the mix really, really early. And then I thought maybe for a second, she is the one that is going to be tasked with that.
Or rather, I don't think that Gotham says, like, Anamanu, like, we need you to step up in this game, because that's not really her type of player. No. It's more that she feels out the game, and when she's on and she's in a rhythm, that's what it looks like. Like, Anamanu, you're going to go for it. You're the one that's going to put the team on your back. So I
she did it at one point. Like, at one point, it was a great version of like this great moment of Anamanu sort of getting a little bit of time in the box and making some decisions, that she kind of put Sarah Gordon on some skates there really, really early. And there was a little bit of a stumble that she took. But, I spoke to Sarah Gordon after the match in the post game, and I asked, I was like, not to make you relive, a tough moment during the game, but she laughed it off. It's different when you're on the winning side of the thing, but she laughed it off. And she sort of said that she wasn't worried about it, because she sort of felt, even though there was a lapse there where she kind of got out of position, that in all of the studying, and taking a look at all the footage and the scouting, and between her and Red Stars goalkeeper Cassie Miller, that Anamanu, her only option at that point would have been to go far post.
Yep.
And that Gordon said that she was covered. She was like, she knew that was going to be a difficult angle for Anamanu. So a little bit of confidence there from the Defender of the Year candidate. And I was like, wow, that's very, very impressive. That's doing your homework, So it was there was a lot left, I think, in terms of to be desired in terms of a playoff quarterfinal kind of like energy. but that made up for it in the second half because things started happening. It was some of the physicality, I think, also led to a lot of the disjointedness in that first half. We saw that kind of come to fruition in the terms of yellows, cautions being handed out in that second half very early on. Sarah Woldmo getting recognized, for a hard challenge and getting sort of pegged with the first yellow of the match, and they all just sort of came in succession after that. I think it was like 5 or 6 yellow cautions that were issued just in the second half alone. So it was, I think, again, another moment of irony in which this player who maybe has been under the radar for some other people, but came along with Mal Pugh in that initial early trade in the offseason with Gotham FC to bring these two players to the Red Stars. And I just think that that's a bit of a full circle arc, right? That they made this trade for these two particular players, and you have Sarah Woldmo playing a defensive role and sort of disrupting and breaking lines and winning the ball, a ball winner, getting this ball, feeding Mal Pugh, who just slots a beautiful goal away past Kaylin Sheridan for what ultimately was the game winner. And you're correct, Lisa. It did just come after the hour mark there for Chicago. And Gotham absolutely, I think, had opportunities to get into the match. Maybe prove my prediction right of possibly having extra time in this game, but it didn't pan out and have that and come to fruition because, again, when we talked in the preview, we said one of the things that Chicago's been really good at in terms of their more recent form as they go into the playoffs is the fact that they have been able to put up these kind of low score lines and able to close it out with strong, organized defensive performances. And we just saw another one of those again out of the Chicago Red Stars team.
4 straight wins now for Chicago, and not a lot of goals in this one, as it was just one, but something that we talked about in our preview of this Chicago match, Sandra. I always like to stat check us and go back and see what did we predict. Mainly, I like to call myself out. And this was a game when we did our preview, we weren't sure of the injury report and who was going to be out, who was going to be in. Amani Dorsey has been out for Gotham. She's a defender. She was a mainstay in the back four lineup for Gotham throughout this season, but she had been out the last several games. Because of that, Elizabeth Eddy started in the left back position for Dorsey. Now, Amani Dorsey was back, and she got the start for Gotham in the back line. And I said she wasn't, so I'm calling myself out on this one. But I think that with Dorsey in that back line, she looked a little off. I'm going to say it. She did. She looked a little, I don't want to say rusty by any means, but just maybe a little overwhelmed at playing in Bridgeview and having to go against the home crowd for Chicago. And not playing in the last few matches with this Gotham side, almost just being thrown in there. And of course she wasn't, because she trains and Scott Parkinson wouldn't have done that to her. But Elizabeth Eddy did come on for Amani Dorsey around the 75th minute or so, 77th minute, I forget. But I just think that's something that needs to be said. And I don't know what would have happened, but Mallory Pugh did score from that side of the field. So we'll see. Yeah. I don't know.
No, it's tough. It's tough. Amani Dorsey had a very strong, this is also us, I guess, sort of saying farewell, right, to this Gotham FC side. So there's going to be a lot of that. I think during these playoff recaps, when we do that, we bid farewell to the teams who are no longer in it. This is it. But so I guess I'll just take this time to say that, Amani Dorsey she had a very strong first half of the season for this Gotham FC side. Absolutely. She really grew into that outside back position for them. And unfortunately, down this latter stretch of the season, had to deal with some very, I guess, what's considered now like ill-timed kind of injuries down the stretch. And I believe it was head related. So when you get into that type of stuff, it can get, there's a lot of unknowns there. It can get very scary at times. And who knows how the training did look? Maybe it was certain type of level of participation. But you have a player who had been in that role and had that experience with the team for a large majority of it. So if they're ready to go come your playoff time, I imagine you say, after what you see out of trainings that week, you say, yes, you are, and you're ready to go. But I don't think that that's an unfair point to bring up at all, because I mean, if you look at the highlight, you see where the goal kind of came from and how that worked out there for Gotham. They ended up going down, but I don't think that's an unfair point to bring up at all. This is a Gotham side that I think is going to probably take a look at the season and maybe consider maybe the early exit. Obviously, a disappointment and a bit of a bummer, but I think there's a lot there for them to look forward to in the future. I mean, they started off this season as 2021 NWSL Challenge Cup finalist, and pushing Portland Thorns to a penalty kick shootout. Um,
Yeah.
and this is a team that went through a rebrand and has sort of tried to push their way into the conversation of playoff picture scenarios. And they did that. They accomplished that this year after going through so many of their own off the field things as well, not just in this year, but in years prior that we've heard about this franchise in the past in terms of, playing pitch and field and training conditions or lack thereof. And now they're playing in Red Bull Arena. Now they have this rebrand. Now this is a place that they're building a winning soccer culture. And so that is an exciting thing to look ahead for this team. And I don't think this is going to be the last that we see of this Gotham side. Unfortunately, it's just an early exit in this one. And for Chicago, they're moving on. They're gonna face off against Portland. So we'll have more on that, obviously, when it comes time for us to take a preview of things. But here is us bidding farewell to the 2021 New Jersey, New York Gotham FC squad. You were a delight to cover from the jump, and Chicago Red Stars, we are still with you, and we will continue to witness your journey as well.